Today I'm pleased to introduce today's guests, Dr. Stephanie Grant and Chief Page. As many of us know, military life is stressful for the service member and their family. Dr. Grant is the Director of Psychological Health at the Fresno Base 144th Fighter Wing, home of the 194th Fighter Squadron, the Griffin. Here's the Griffin. And there's the plane they use. So, Dr. Grant serves as the Wing's Suicide Prevention Program Manager, Master Resilience Trainer, Communitary Action Team Chair, and Disaster Mental Health Chair. Dr. Grant has more than 30 years of professional experience. In addition to 144th duties, she serves as an adjunct professor in social work at CSUF and Fresno Pacific. Immediately prior to her 144th duties, she was the executive director at Infinite Frog Adoption Service, where she expanded the agency reach from 10 to 17 counties. Dr. Grant has a keen interest and worked in with the deaf community and sign language. She has a BA in deaf education and master's in social work from CSUF and a doctorate in social work from St. Catherine University, University of St. Thomas in San Juan, Minnesota. And she is a licensed clinical social worker.
Yeah.
Another one. Some of her awards are, and scholarships include the Air National Guard Civilian of the Year 2019, very impressive. Director of Psychological Health of the Year, Region 4, Air National Guard in 2018. The CSU Chancellor's Doctor Incentive Scholar. Now Chief Page, who's hiding under the table, is a 4-year-old yellow Labrador who was trained at Southeastern Guide Dogs in Florida. Dr. Grant and Chief Page serve over 1,200 Air Guard members who serve the state of California and the Air Force. And so please welcome Dr. Grant and Chief Page.
Well, it is our pleasure to be here today. Thank you so much, Monica, and for such a nice, warm introduction. Can you all hear me okay?
Yep.
Okay, as I speak, feel free to stop me, ask a question if something comes up. I want this to be really just an informal gathering of information. And I'm not sure how much you know about the Air National Guard, and so I will kind of speak to that a little bit, but it's just a joy to be here. When I was at Infinite Frog Adoption Service, I was in North Fresno a lot, and so it's just great to see all of your faces and just your support of the community. So I started at the wing in 2015, and what a big change that was. I had worked in adoption. I worked for Child Welfare Services in Tulare County prior to that, worked in the deaf community, just did a lot of other things working with youth. And so working in the military, wow, is a whole new language to learn, right? And so what a change. But it's just been an amazing experience working at the wing, working with amazing men and women that serve in the Air National Guard and for the Air Force. Got to do a lot of great traveling. Really, my position is all about embedded mental health. So when you think about it, we've been in the longest ongoing engagement. And you know what, Paige has me twisted, so I'm going to do a little circle to get her not making me fall. But anyway, we've been in the longest ongoing engagement, since 9/11. And you've probably heard a lot of, newscast stories on, about increased suicides and PTSD, depression, anxiety, and all of that, and just the need for increased VA services. Well, at the same time, the military recognized across the board the need for embedded mental health. So I came along as one of the first cohort of 90 wings across the country of Air National Guard. We have licensed clinical social workers that serve at each one of those wings. So we're DOD employees, civilian, GS, if you're familiar with how the government employee structure works. But we're embedded full-time to be a safe place for airmen to come. They don't have to have a mental health diagnosis necessarily. They could be struggling with some marital issues, just increased anxiety, whatever. They have a safe place to come that really, we're there just to help them process, help them get to resources and that kind of thing. So part of my role is, one-on-one crisis intervention, safe place for people to process. It's hopefully they get that word out that it's not going to affect their career, and really the messaging is, seek help early before it does affect your career type of thing. And then I'm also a subject matter expert for the command when it comes to mental health issues. I work a lot with our comprehensive airman fitness, which is all about resilience and being preventive and recognizing that we have multifacets of our health, mental, spiritual, physical, and social health. And so really providing those opportunities for our men and women to be able to, really focus on those areas and be able to thrive that way. Any questions that you have so far? Okay. So when it comes to the Air National Guard, a lot of times people think, oh, weekend warriors, they work once a month and that's it. And really, since 9/11, that's changed a lot. 50% of our active duty deployments are filled by reservists and Air National Guard. And as a Guard wing, we serve kind of a dual mission. We are there for the governor, the state, so we work for the state as well as the federal mission of the Air Force. And for those of you probably have heard those loud jets up in the air, our F-15s, right? So we are the only fighter wing in the state of California, and we protect the whole West Coast. The first summer that I was at the wing, and actually when it first happened, it was classified, but CNN got a hold of it, and then it no longer became classified. You might have heard this story. On the 4th of July, a couple of Russian bears were coming towards our coast, and so our jets got spun up, just in a few minutes. They have 2 jets always ready to hit the air in just a few minutes, and pilots waiting, and their maintainers all, get that plane ready. So they actually met the Russian bears, off our coast, and when they saw our pilots, they said, "Happy 4th of July, Americans." And this kind of the story goes that when that happened, Putin called actually Obama and said, "Happy 4th of July." That's the story as it's told, but the picture and all of that was broadcast. It was no longer classified. But just so you know, that is in Fresno. We are, protecting our whole West Coast. That's a mission that's been going on for a long time. And then we also have a lot of other missions where we have, in California, we've had a lot of disasters, right, in the last several years with fires and all of that. So our men and women respond. We have the HERC, which is a Homeland Emergency Response Team with medics that are ready to go and serve at a moment's notice. So there's just a really huge ops tempo, and which we know in the military with deployments and people being away from home, there's stressors on the family, and so my position and Paige is to kind of be there for people with that mission. And in 2017, I was placed with Paige, and she comes from Southeastern Guide Dogs, like Monica said. She was bred to be a guide dog. She definitely does not have the disposition to be a guide dog. She's very chill, as you can see. And so guide dogs need to be a little more assertive. We took her up hiking, and we were kicking dirt in her face. I'm like, Paige, get to the, take the lead, take the lead. And she didn't want to take the lead. Not everybody can be a leader, right? And so, but she makes a perfect facility therapy dog. And so she's been such a blessing. And you know what? I am not moving forward in the slideshow. Sorry about that. I'll talk a little bit about partnering with Paige. So Paige, at the wing, when members come to my office or when I do walkabouts around the wing, she has definitely just been an asset. Mental health stigma is alive and well in the military, even though, we do a lot to try to educate and let people know, hey, come get help early. There's no stigma in seeking help, and we all have problems from time to time, and that's really just part of it. The human experience. She has been, and people are afraid, that it's going to hurt their career if they come forward. And so she's been just a really great tool for me as I walk around and people come into my office. that dogs just have a way of bringing a smile to people's face. We know from research that they help mitigate stress and depression symptoms and that type of thing. So she's been wonderful. I actually have a picture on one of these slides that shows she will actually put her head on an airman's boot sometimes when they're sitting in my office and they're really upset. It's like she senses it and she lays her head on their boot. Really sweet. So, I have, yeah, I have a member that actually said she was really contemplating ending her life, and on several occasions had a gun up to her head, and it was through Paige that she came and sought services and was able to get that support and get on a more healthy path. And so I know that Paige has just been really instrumental in my work there, and I'm really grateful to have her. She comes with 2 years of intense training, and Southeastern Guide Dogs says that she's worth about $60,000, and they placed her for free. Their trainers come once a year to recertify her, and so it's just been amazing to have her. And they've placed several dogs across the country at our we have 90 wings, Air National Guard, and I think probably around 10 of the wings have a dog from Southeastern Guide Dogs. They also provide dogs for veterans and military members that need a service dog or that need an emotional support dog. So just something good to know if you know of somebody who would benefit from having a fully trained dog.
How old is she?
She is 4 years old, and she has retired at 11, so she's got a little while. And the patches on her they represent some of the different squadrons at the wing. So
Yeah.
I can let her go free if you want to. Okay. So she'll walk around and just sit. There you go. Okay, go sit down. She is all lab. So even though she's had a lot of training, food is definitely a weakness for her, I should say. It makes her, easy to train, right? But she knows better in a restaurant setting, but she may look at you with her long eyes. Yes?
So what type of training does a dog receive to be an emotional support dog? How are they different?
You know what, that's such a great question. The question was emotional support dog. So when it comes to dogs, and we see that there's dogs on planes, there's dogs everywhere, right? You see dogs, or different animals, emotional support dogs, service dogs, and then facility therapy dogs. 3 very different classifications, and that's a really common question. I didn't know anything about it until I was placed with Paige and learned. So basically, an emotional support dog, ESA, they're a lot of times don't have, it may be somebody's dog that they feel they get emotional support from, and so it's easy to get like a doctor's note and that type of thing. And those dogs can go on airplanes, they can go in hotel rooms, they can go in rentals, and they often don't have very much training, honestly. You can, easily sign your dog up to be a ESA. A service dog is a dog that provides a service to a person with a disability. So it can be, a mobility disability, it could be, like there's hearing dogs for the deaf community, it could be for a mental health, like PTSD, there's service dogs. So those dogs are allowed to go everywhere. They can go restaurants, they can go into stores, on airplane, they have access wherever that individual has access. Now with Paige, she's a facility therapy dog, so she is trained and she has the rights to go, really basically she's placed with me at the 144th Fighter Wing. She's has more training often than an ESA, but she doesn't necessarily have the same rights as an ESA. So like when you look, like Southeastern Guide Dogs has placed dogs at Walter Reed Medical Center. President Bush's dog, Sully, that you probably saw on television, is now placed at Walter Reed. So those dogs, very trained, but they're specifically for that medical facility.
So the type of training for an emotional support dog, is it just obedience training, or are they trained to sense a panic attack coming on, or
Well,
a seizure?
I would say a dog that's trained for a panic attack or a seizure is probably more of a service dog for that mental health need for the person that they're serving. An emotional support dog, they do, I mean, they should have, really be the type of dog that you could take anywhere, right? Have good obedience training and listen and respond, that kind of thing, be able to follow commands, not mooch when it comes to food, all that kind of stuff, but they don't always, right? So that's not one of the, necessarily the requirements. I think things are gonna we'll see some changes probably with how all of that works. I know I saw an article recently where the airlines is working to change some of the parameters around emotional support animals. But that's a great question because they definitely have very different access. Yes,
So the work that you do specifically, are you able to work with civilians too? So are you working with their families and their
Yes.
children?
I do.
And they come to see you on base for services, or do you have an office outside, or is it just
Great question. My office is on base. So in my role, I do a lot of brief therapy. So it's, initial assessment, crisis intervention, and then referral. So I do have family members, children that come to see me, but I would refer them out for ongoing services. So we're very closely, we have a family readiness person, manager at every base that really works with the families when it comes to deployments and all of that. And then also we have, our chaplains. I work closely with our chaplains and our commanders, our first sergeants.
So is there, just a follow-up question then, and maybe there isn't an answer to this, but are you seeing any kind of particular needs that stick out today with servicemen that is more than anything else?
So I do, I have top training issues. I would say relationship issues can be a real, come up to the forefront just because one of the top needs because of deployments and just that constant change, being away and coming back, just all about the stressors on the family when a service member is not there. And also, I think alcohol, we see that just in our culture, right? That alcohol, substance use, specifically more alcohol, it can be an issue.
We hear so much about PTSD as this kind of catch-all phrase, but in our relationship maybe with other service members, we don't often hear what they're really struggling with,
Yeah.
And then you go, oh yeah, well maybe that would be really difficult to be able to help or relationally know what they're going through.
And one thing about PTSD, which I think has really helped us as far as stigma for seeking help, is PTSD is no longer a disqualifying condition for military members. So, and then also, what I have seen with alcohol, we have members that come forward and say, hey, I'm struggling with alcohol, and I just really need some help. And even the way our Air Force instruction is written, it really supports people to come forward and say, hey, I just need some extra support for this. And I've seen it's not a game changer for their military career. They're able to get that support, get on a better path, and really for those around them that are watching, it really kind of sets that precedence of, yeah, we all have struggles from time to time, and addiction is very common, and so getting help, yeah.
I'm thinking of pilots, I'm thinking of the lethal weapons that they fly. At what point as a counselor do you have to ground the pilot? At what level of dysfunction or illness did you have to ground the pilot?
Yeah, no, that's a really great question for a fighter wing. We have fighter pilots, and so obviously they're flying these billion-dollar machines with weapons and all of that. So they there's in a different category as far as when they need to go to treatment. Let's say if they have to go to inpatient residence, they would be grounded at that point until they, doesn't mean that they can't fly again, but they would, it's a totally different scenario for the pilots. absolutely, yes.
I think a lot of people don't realize where that squadron is located. I always assumed it was at the airport, the ones you see occasionally taking off.
It is.
Okay, well, do a lot of them go out of that airport at Herndon?
No, it's all at the 144th Fighter Wing, and where our F-15 jets are, right by the airport. We share the runway with Fresno, Yosemite. Yeah, it's all out of the Fresno airport. Yes?
We saw the planes taking off.
I was in the Marine Corps. I served in the first Marine Air.
We got to go aboard.
And one thing I noticed is that some of the pilots, fighter pilots from the group were, the fighter groups were deliberately would not form a close relationship with the other pilots because at any instant, they would be down and dead and gone. I don't know if you have that problem with existing, we're not in a wartime right now.
You know, that's a really great question, and I think things have changed over the years. In fact, we had a heritage event a few years back where we had fighter pilots from the Vietnam War come, and one was General Titus. And they talked at a panel about when they would go out on sorties during the Vietnam War, they didn't know, like each time they were like, you know, this may be it, we may not come back. And so I'm just, and now, and compared to our pilots now, you know, it's very rare that a plane goes down, or they, you know, I think they talk about we have, you know, we have air superiority, and it's a different day when it comes to that. So what I've seen in my 5 years of experience there, which I know is limited when you, I mean, compared to how long the wing's been there, but I've seen just a real camaraderie among the pilots. They're a very close-knit group. And I would say, you know, with that, really most of my interventions are not with pilots, right? They're with all of the members that support the mission. And, but Paige has been a phenomenal door for me to get to know the pilots better. Because definitely mental health stigma, because the stakes are pretty high for pilots, like we were just talking about, right? They have to be on their game and ready to take off. And so it is tough for them to ever say, hey, I'm struggling with some depression, or I'm struggling with any kind of thing, right? So Paige has been instrumental. In fact, she has spent a lot of time in air flight equipment, which is in ops, where our pilots are. And so they know her sometimes better than they know me. So it's kind of a door for me to like, say, okay, I am the mental health person, but I am approachable. You don't have to be afraid of me. So I don't bite, I promise, just like Paige doesn't. But great questions.
Does
Yeah.
she live with you?
She lives with me, yes. So part of taking her on is taking on the responsibility of her care, which I do, you know, it's my joy to take on her care. And our family is all, you know, we've all fallen in love with her. There's a question here.
In the late 60s, out of the airport, most of the pilots, fighter pilots, and were airline personnel, were airline pilots. Is that still factor now?
Yes, a lot of our pilots also fly for the airlines. Yeah. So we have our dual mission as an Air Guard base, right? So we do have probably about 400 and something full-time members out there, and then we have over 1,200 that come and drill and go on deployments and that type of thing. The pilots are a little different because they have to get so many hours in. So it's for those that are part-time, so maybe work full-time for an airline and then are out there part-time, it's actually a really intense part-time position because they have to get so many sorties in. And so that's a little bit different. But yeah, a lot of them do fly for the airline. Yeah, for different airlines. Great question. Yes.
Is there any statistics available on the benefits from the service of the therapy dogs to reduce the suicide rate among veterans?
You know what? That is so new that we don't have, I mean, more anecdotally do I have evidence, but there's not a lot of just empirical evidence at this point of research that's been done. But I'm hoping in the future that we have more, especially when there's really limited research when it comes to the Air National Guard, even for my position, because my position is not very old. It's only, when I started there in 2015, that was the first that they hired actually full-time. We had contract workers a few years prior to that, but 2015 is when they hired full-time civilian licensed clinical social workers to work at all 90 wings. So really, even just, talking about has the embedded mental health position impacted the number of suicides? We don't have a lot of good hard data on that. We have some, stats, but it's more research would be very beneficial to really show. I mean, I've seen a definite difference, working with Paige.
Yeah, I attended a district conference at the Rotary earlier last year, and there were teams showing the service dogs, and they donated to veterans,
Yeah.
and they have done about 110 at that time.
Oh, that's
So
wonderful.
I didn't even know that many people looking for that.
Yeah.
So it was very interesting that it was all they had.
Definitely. Let me see if I see how. This is actually Paige at our big Fresno Veterans Parade. How many of you have been, that's such a wonderful parade. She was in it a couple years ago. And this is her, as I was telling you, she puts her head on a member's boot when she senses that they're really going through some tough things. And the dog, the other picture is actually Golden Retriever from the same organization with the DPH, the person in my position in Alaska, in Anchorage, Alaska.
Do they have the same service out at Lemoore?
So there's not Lemoore is an active duty Navy base. So, I'm sorry, who asked me that question? Okay, I'm sorry. It's a, active duty Navy base. So they have a whole mental health unit. So active duty bases, like our Air Force base, like Travis, has a mental health flight. And so that's very different than like at the Guard, at our Guard unit, where we don't, it's a lot smaller. And that's the purpose for having like embedded mental health, because we don't have a mental health clinic like they would have at an active duty base. Yes.
Recently you did have a deficit pilot over in Ukraine, and how did you interact with the members there and with Paige?
Oh, that's a great question. So talking about, we, a little over a year ago, we lost a pilot in the Ukraine. We had an exercise in the Ukraine where this pilot was what was really hard was this pilot had been there, over 30 years. He was former enlisted and then became a fighter pilot. And so he, let's see. I'm going to show you a couple-minute video that our PA developed for the suicide prevention conference that one of my colleagues and I presented at. And it just talks about Paige at the wing. It shows some of our members talking about Paige.
Paige is a 40-year-old yellow Labrador retriever who loves a good scratch. Paige also loves tagging along with Dr. Stephanie Grant, the 144 Fighter Wing's Director of Psychological Health, as a facility therapy dog.
We know from the research that therapy dogs are excellent at mitigating stress, at mitigating depression symptoms and anxiety, and she does a great job at that.
Paige also helps with developing relationships between airmen and mental health providers like Dr. Grant.
I see that in the organization there's still some stigma with people wanting to reach out for help, but with Paige it really just breaks down that stigma. You get to see a dog and she's nice and she's fun and she's super sweet, and so I think that's really helped Dr. Grant get access to areas where people do need help, and it just helps break that stigma down and it kind of gets rid of it.
For one airman at the 144, the time she spent with Paige actually led her to take the first steps in making an appointment with Dr. Grant.
I think everybody at some point needs to, sometimes talk to someone. So Paige was actually the reason that I felt able to reach out to Dr. Grant, because I'd seen Paige around base, and because of Paige, I was able to make that connection.
Dr. Grant stresses the importance of Paige's role in creating bonds with individuals to help them receive the support they need.
She has just been a valuable tool to really build those relationships, because we know relationships are key, right? When things start going south and people start experiencing more symptoms of depression or anxiety, and really needing that extra support, when you've already developed that relationship and that rapport, it goes a long ways with them seeking help early.
Staff Sergeant George Solis, Fresno, California.
All right. That's actually Paige with the dog in Alaska. So I went, Paige and I went, we've been able to go on a few exercises.
Yeah, you're a good son.
On a few exercises with our lead. And so that was great, being able to connect with the dog there and bring both dogs around to our troops that we're working over there for the exercise.
Like your haircut.
Thank you. I surprised my husband with that. I was just actually on a TDY with a unit in Hawaii. And got my, got my hair. Well, it's wonderful to be here with all of you. Thank you so much for all your questions. Great questions.
Dr. Grant, before you get away here, we have a book we'd like to have you sign. I'll give you a little history of it. We partner with Lowell School downtown, an inner city school, and our club kind of has adopted Lowell School. And so we have every speaker sign a book. And for yours, Dr. Pad, who's